Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be joining us for this episode for the time being. We don't know what's going on down the line. But the title of this episode is The Boston Tea Party. The Commanders are heading up to face the New England Patriots this weekend, so we thought we'd bring in our good friend of our pod. But before I do that, just want to say the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And Mark Bullock, all the way across the sea. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
It's been a chaotic week, Mark. I'm not going to lie. I was feeling a certain way the other day because the quote, really, the addition by subtraction quote regarding Chase Young and Montez Sweat being traded really didn't sit well with me, because if you felt that way before, then you're basically sacrificing games at that point, right?
Yeah, I didn't really understand that one. If you truly believe that it was addition by subtraction and getting rid of particularly Chase Young was who that quote was referring to, then why was he playing in the first place? And
right.
I made this point on Twitter the other day, and lots of people came back saying, "Oh, well, you had to preserve his trade value. You had to play him for his trade value." And it's like,
that doesn't sit
these
well
guys, these guys don't care about trade value. They're coaching for their jobs. They're not going to get to use that trade value if they lose too many games. They need to be playing the guys that are giving them the best chance to win. And like, if the coaches were feeling that, the players would be feeling that. Like, there would be an uproar amongst the team if truly Chase Young was this big of an obstacle in the team and would be an addition by subtraction. Like, if that was the case, then I think the whole team would be up in arms and saying, why is he playing? Why are we not playing someone else? And trying to win games here. So yeah, that one didn't really make much sense to me.
And then, Mark, to piggyback off of that, what did you think about the overall trade value? Like, some people are looking at this as saying that they're tanking for the rest of the season. There's others saying, wait, maybe there won't be that much of a drop-off. What do you think about the trade quality just in the assets that were brought back? Do you think this is a good thing for Washington moving forward?
I think they got great value on Montez Sweat. Getting that second round pick from the Bears, which is probably going to be a pretty high second round pick. I think that's tremendous value. And my thinking when they first announced that trade was, well, they're going to keep Chase Young and extend Chase Young, and that makes the Sweat trade even better because it's a guy they definitely weren't going to be able to extend as well as Chase Young. And you know, then they go and trade Chase Young, and it feels like that wasn't. I understand why they got what they got for Young, being, his injury history, and there's no guarantee that the 49ers are going to be able to re-sign him. So it is just a rental at this point. So getting a third round pick for him, you don't like it because obviously he was the second overall pick and he has amazing talent, and he was starting to put together quite a good season in terms of his ability to generate pressure. And I was seeing a more diverse rush plan from him that made me think this is finally starting to be what we thought he would be after his rookie year. So when you think about that, you don't love the value of a late third round pick, but when you factor in that it is likely a rental and his injury history, and all of that kind of stuff, it makes a little bit more sense, but still don't love it when you feel like he's a really talented player that was starting to click and possibly was worth, well, in my mind, he was worth extending.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot also, Mark, that Montez Sweat was shipped for that second rounder, right? But Chase Young, who they drafted, was, you could say, was their baby, you could say, so to speak, their first draft pick, was shipped for a comp pick in a round after that. I think it speaks a lot about how the relationship was going at that moment. How you doing, Hall?
Yeah, and also kind of to that point, it's like obviously players, like other players talk to other players in the league, other coaches talk to other coaches in the league, so they can get the game tapes, all 22, and they can kind of see the stuff that people have been saying about Chase as far as like he doesn't really have that high motor. He kind of takes plays off and whatnot. But all in all, he was putting together a pretty good season. So hate to see him go, but love to see him leave, as I say. But speaking of guys that got traded, someone that didn't get traded was Cam Curl, who I think a lot of fans and a lot of I would say people inside the building right now probably would like to get him extended, want to see him here for a while with his defense. Do you think that with them trading away guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young that they could be possibly kind of trying to reconstruct the defense as a whole and they might let Cam Curl walk? Or do you think this kind of clears the path for an extension for Cam Curl now that the other two guys are kind of off the books? You don't got to pay them.
Yeah, I think it probably is more towards the latter, where they now they don't have to pay either of those defensive ends, and they can afford to pay a safety significant contract. I think they have enough of salary cap room this offseason that they could have afforded to pay Cam Curl and one of those defensive ends. If they really wanted to make it work, they could have paid all three of them, but certainly they could have gotten two of those deals done if they wanted to. But with both defensive ends gone, I'd be surprised if they let Cam Curl walk. I would think that would be a priority for them to extend. I guess the only reason he wouldn't get extended at this current point in time would be the uncertainty with the coaching staff and the front office, and right. Maybe a new regime brings in a new head coach and a new defensive coordinator, and it's a different system. Even then, I think Cam Curl offers a lot, and he's so versatile. He can play so many different roles to a high level. He should fit just about every system, but maybe if there's a system that's kind of the opposite of Ron Rivera's like desire for position flex. If you have a system where we want one guy to play one specific role and that's it, then maybe someone else values Cam Curl higher than you do, and you let him walk. But I think I would be surprised if Cam Curl isn't locked down as the next sort of defender that gets an extension.
Absolutely. And now let's talk about this matchup this weekend going against New England without Tom Brady, but Bill Belichick is still in the building, still has a commanding lead against rookie quarterbacks, Mark. So that being said, let's get into some keys this weekend going against New England. What do they have to do offensively and defensively to put themselves in a good position to win this football game?
Yeah, I think defensively they need to play sort of cleaner football and not give up the explosive plays and have the coverage bust that we saw last week. And ideally, you'd like to see them be put in a little bit more favorable situations. It's going to be interesting to see, obviously, with no Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I think they're going to be a little bit different up front in how they attack the defense, the opposing offense, because they can't just rely on their front four to generate pressure anymore. Right. So they're going to have to do a few different things to generate that pressure. So that's going to be interesting to see. On offense, the Patriots, the best Bill Belichick teams have been teams that they play a lot of man coverage, but they play man coverage in such a way where they are able to take away your top threats. So quite often they will double your number one with typically their second rated corner and a safety to double that number one receiver, and then your number two receiver will just have their number one corner on you. And then that effectively locks down your top two receivers and makes you win with your third or fourth guys. So it's a tough way to go about things. And there's some ways around that. If they're playing heavy man coverage like that you can do some things to try to beat that. But what the thing that Washington has to its advantage is they've got three really good receivers. They've got a good tight end. They've got some good receiving backs. So that it's not like if you shut down Terry McLaurin and John Dotson, there's still Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, and Antonio Gibson that can do some good work. So I think Washington has the strength and depth at the receiver position to kind of manage that. And even if their top two threats are locked down, they should still be able to be productive.
Yeah, and Curtis Samuel hasn't practiced yet this week, so he might not be able to go. But that being said, Jamison Crowder had a big game last weekend. But to your point, right now, New England is 17th in passing yards allowed and 9th in rushing yards, but 27th in sacks. And we've done fantasy football shows before. We've said, look, every time you go against Bill Belichick's defense, you have to take away your number one outlet. He's going to make it difficult on you to have to go to your uncomfortable spots in order to score points. Sorry, Hall.
Yeah, no, that's correct, and that kind of almost leads into my next question as far as Sam Howell throughout for the offense as a whole, I guess you could say, because in turn that is Sam Howell. He's the one directing it, but they've been up and down all season from week one up until now. They haven't really strung together two good games offensively in a row this season, you could say. What is your eval on Sam Howell for these first 8 games so far? And kind of like Kyle said, Bill Belichick likes to take away Bill Belichick's record overall against young quarterbacks is pretty good. He likes to confuse them and, like you said, make them uncomfortable. How would you get Sam Howell comfortable against a Bill Belichick defense this upcoming week if you're Eric Bieniemy?
Yeah, so for the first part of that, with just an overall evaluation on Sam Howell, I think, in general, I think he's been pretty good, pretty impressive. I think there is a lot to like about what he's put on film. He's been accurate. He's been able to, for the most part, process the information that's being given to him pre-snap and turn that into a good mental process post-snap and making correct decisions. He's not very often going to the wrong place. His main issue is sometimes he gets there a little bit slow, or he ends up holding onto the ball a little bit too long, waiting for a guy to get open. And obviously that has led to the sack issue, and that is the sort of big red flag for Hal at this point in time is those sacks and whether he can cut them down. And I think the promising thing that we saw past week against Philly was the second time he saw Philly, he was more used to kind of what they do and how they try to attack him, and he was able to be much more efficient with the ball and get the ball out a lot quicker, and that sack number dropped down to just 1 sack last week, which wasn't really his fault. Andrew Wiley got beat by a really, really good move from Hassan Reddick. So I think that's a good sign of progress from him, and I think we've seen signs of progress from him throughout the year. Sometimes it, as you say, it kind of feels like every other week it's 1 week good, 1 week bad. But we have to remember with a quarterback that a young quarterback, progress isn't linear. It's going to be up and down, and you have to take kind of a big picture view and see at the start of the year what he is compared to what at the end of the year, and he's progressing in the right direction, I think. So the eval on Howell right now is, I think, trending in the right direction. In terms of handling this week, I think the blueprint that we've seen work for them is playing the kind of quick game stuff, getting the ball out of Howell's hands quickly, sometimes spreading out the defense and generating the matchups that way, and giving Howell lots of pre-snap information and pre-snap indicators that, hey, I'm probably going to get man coverage here or zone. And against a team like the Patriots, it's not necessarily they don't disguise man coverage as often because they just play man coverage. They're not trying to disguise it. So it's not necessarily something where you need to uncover that, but you can still move guys around and try to manipulate different coverages. And so I think it's still going to be along that kind of similar theme where you're wanting to get the ball out of Howell's hands efficiently. And if you get the right look, you might be trying to dial up some like slot fades and stuff like that, where you're getting maybe Jahan Dotson in the slot on a number 2 corner rather than their top guy, and trying to beat him on a slot fade and that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be mainly quick game and the occasional shot.
I agree with you there. Right, New England's defense are 31st in the league. New England's offense is 31st in the league, only putting up about 14 points per game. 7th in red zone, 25th in third down percentage, 26th in rushing yards. That being said, facing against that New England offense, we talked about Chase Young and Montez Sweat leaving, so only a couple more questions for you to wrap up this episode, Mark. But the DNs, who do you expect to see a lot of snaps, to get snaps, and a plethora of them this weekend?
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill will be the next guys up. I think it's weird with the trades of Sweat and Young. It feels like Casey Toohill is suddenly going to become this really important part of this defense because not because of necessarily his pass rushing ability, more because he was a linebacker in college and he's able to drop into coverage pretty easily, and hold up in coverage. And that's one way we saw a few years ago when both Young and Sweat were injured. The way they managed to generate pressure was using what's called simulated pressures or sim pressures, where it's still only a 4-man rush, but they bring the fourth guy from a different spot, and they try to overload one side of the line. And to do that, they need a defensive end to drop off into coverage to keep the numbers same. So Casey Toohill, when he was playing a lot, he was able to do that, and then they were able to generate some decent pressure doing that. And so I think that's going to be kind of a key part of how the defense goes from kind of here on out without their top two edge rushers anymore. So I think Casey Toohill is going to play a key role in that. But it'll be interesting to see how much the rookies rotate in. I'm intrigued to see what Andre Jones brings after his preseason was promising, and training camp. The reports out of training camp were pretty good. From the preseason games, it felt like he was still maybe a little bit raw, but that he is a 7th round pick. He's going to be raw, so be interesting to see where he is now compared to where he was in sort of training camp and preseason.
All right, Mark, that's going to wrap us up for this interview, sir. I really do appreciate you coming on here. Last minute before you get out of here, score prediction, MVP.
I think on our Twitter thing where there's a few of us giving predictions, I think I said Patriots to win 20-17. But I wasn't comfortable either way. I don't really feel great about picking the Patriots, but I don't necessarily trust Washington to win a game right now. So
you feel like Montez Sweat being interviewed in Chicago, just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
All right, Mark. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us on this beautiful Thursday evening, sir. I hope you go and get some rest. I know you're way ahead of us, and it's way past your bedtime at this point, Mark. I can't thank you enough for joining us, sir. Go and enjoy your good rest, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. See you.
Have a good one. Thanks, Mark. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Mark Bullock, the X's and O's champion, just aficionado genius that he is. Yeah. But we're going to be joined by our next guest here very, very soon. But before we get into that, real quick, if you want to give your reaction, like we haven't talked much, we've said some stuff on Twitter, but the reaction to Chase and Montez leaving, we've heard some of the reactions from the players today. We heard Jack Del Rio and Eric Bieniemy talk to the press earlier today. What are your feelings on the move? Because on Monday evening when we recorded, it was still up in the air. We didn't know if one guy was going to get traded, none. That was a big possibility, or both.
Yeah. Excuse me. As far as the trade goes, I was a little bit more surprised than I thought I would be, just because I kind of had a feeling, just with all the stuff swirling around Montez Sweat, that he was probably more than likely going to get traded. The big surprise was it was Chicago, which obviously, as we all know, Chicago is going to have probably a top 5 pick. So it'll be a top 5 pick in the second round, which is lovely. I love that. So as much as I know they wanted to keep Montez Sweat and possibly extend him here, if someone's going to offer you up a high round, second round pick, which basically is like an end of the first round pick at this point from Chicago, it's hard to pass up on that for a guy that you might, like I said, you might not get to retain because he's going to be a free agent, get offers from everybody. So, and then to make it even sweeter, he might not even re-sign in Chicago. So it's like we pretty much when's the last time Washington won a trade? We almost kind of fleeced him. So that was cool. And then as far as Chase getting traded, that was a little bit of a surprise because, like Mark said, you figured if Montez goes, you're at least going to franchise tag not Montez, Chase Young, just because you still have that premier edge rusher on the outside, the athletic guy, the guy that can, if he's keeps building on this year, can maybe go into next year and get to 10, 11, 12 sacks or more pressure rates and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you hear all the stuff off as far as like off the field, as far as like, and then you see, I think it was Ref the District that charted all 50 of his pass rushes against the Eagles, and it was kind of like maybe in the back of his mind he knew he was getting traded, and he was just kind of giving like half effort because there was definitely plays he took off. If you watch
He's been doing that all
the
season,
game,
man.
that's what I'm saying. So if you've really been watching, he's been kind of been doing that all season. Plays that aren't to his side of the ball, he's kind of like I've said before, guys like T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, the guys that he wants to inspire to be, that he actually thinks that he is at this point in time, they chase the ball down. They don't take really that many plays off. They make the game-changing plays that get you the bag pretty much essentially. So it's because we're not going anywhere this year, and because you're probably, again, more than likely you're going to franchise him next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we see how that always goes. You're probably going to lose him long term anyway if you franchise a guy the first time. So, end of the day, you got a pick in the top 100 for him, more than likely. Now you have 5 picks in the top 100, 3 in the top 45 to 50 picks. It's just more ammunition for the new regime. And at the end of the day, when you have that much cap space coming up and you have that many picks, you can easily turn it around. If you roll with Sam Howell or whatever quarterback, you can easily turn it around if you hit on your guys in free agency, 1 or 2 guys, and you hit on all 3 or 2 out of 3 of those first 3 draft picks. Next thing you know, you're a team, one of those teams that has a young quarterback with some good to great pieces around him. And in a weak NFC right now, anything can be possible in 2024. So for right now, it definitely kind of sucks because obviously you want to see good players and star players on the field. But at the same time, I feel like there's finally a plan and there's finally like a path that everyone kind of seems like they're walking down. It's not just, hey, let's go this way. Let's go this way. Let's go this way. No, let's do this one. Let's do that. So it seems like there's one voice and one plan, which I can always get behind that.
Yeah, and look, I'll tell you a story. When we had a flag football team, we had a quarterback on our team that was well known. He was very well known locally because he played high school ball, was actually pretty good. But, like he would show up to games right when the game started. Like we would start the games, he'd be getting ready still. He'd come, lit, not in the right mindset, everything like that. And it was like kind of pissing me off. I was one of the team leaders and I was voicing my opinion.
Didn't throw me the ball, so that pissed me off.
Yeah, so I ended up with saying, look, let's move on let's go down another route. So another team went and picked him up. And all of a sudden when he gets picked by that new team, he starts showing up
at that too.
The rivals. He starts showing up on time, but actually, no. He starts showing up early and actually stretching early, working out, and everyone was like, "Damn, that's kind of messed up." And I said, "No, dude, I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he's motivated now. It just sucks that we're gonna beat him. I just don't want to put a pile on him too bad when that does happen, which it did happen, but
multiple times.
All I'm saying is, these sort of situations are a big cog into things because this is somebody in a personal, social level." Is a leader, so to speak, and they're not buying into the overall system, and which creates a huge division between leadership and the leaders of the team because you have this outspoken kind of issue going on, and the message has been not being conveyed. It's not being pushed all the way through, if that is the case. But I'm just saying that's what it was like for me when I saw what happened when the trade went down. I was very surprised. I've said this many times that if you were going to trade one, you were going to trade both. And I really like Montez Sweat. I really like Chase Young. I'm not there every day. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know the relationships. I hoped that everything was all good and well. But, this is a business and things change. But I think that it was a smart move for the long term. And I think that if you look at this 4 months from now and both of them were to walk for nothing, and we don't get any comp picks, I think we'd all be saying something very differently. You guys would be saying, Ron Rivera's a dinosaur. He doesn't make the right decision, blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
People already curse him out as it is. They'd really be cursing him out if it happened that way. Yeah. They'd be like, oh, Ron Rivera set us up for failure. Blah, blah.
Exactly. So now Let's get into our fan questions as we're joined by our next guest. But this is something I really wanted to talk about. It's a great question supplied by Tony Franchise on Twitter. Thank you, Tony. He said, "Hey fellas, I was a little bummed when we traded Chase, but I got over it. However, I really didn't like the leaked comments by a coach about him on the way out. It really reeked of the toxicity when Dan was here when that came out. And what do you guys think?" I agree with you. I don't agree with kicking a guy out the door. But on top of that, what I didn't like about the addition by subtraction quote, and I understand that the word potential was put in front of it. And if you're a lawyer, you're going to say that probably takes it out of the equation of what I'm about to say. But the fact is, if you truly do believe that it's addition by subtraction, you're telling me that you sacrificed the first 8 games of the season for more draft stock. And I don't care if it's at the beginning or at the end of the season. That doesn't sit well with me. And that's not okay with me. I have a huge issue with that. And that's why I kind of was confused the other day on Twitter, because it was like, is this a trial year? Like, should we even be caring about this? You know what I mean? Like, if you're running for draft stock, then isn't that what we should be looking forward to? Do you know what I mean by that? Like, if you're not playing the best guy on the field. So that really did irk me in a way, but I understand why they would say something like that, because they still want to invoke confidence, excitement in the team. But it's just kind of a big issue when you kind of open it up a little bit to say, well, if that is the case, why were they getting that many snaps over the guys you think they could be? You know what I mean? But the flip side of that, I will say, the other argument could be they could be talking about addition by subtraction with the draft picks, which I understand.
Yeah, and that's where I was well, I guess I was going to kind of go with that because, like, I'm not going to say, like, those were – because, like, Mike Silver, I guess, is the one that got the quote, and that's where Ben's standing and everyone was putting it out from. Then, obviously, Mike Silver, Ron Rivera go back to Cal days, University of California. So, I'm not going to say Ron Rivera said that directly to Mike Silver, but obviously it came from someone close to Ron Rivera that wanted Mike Silver to get that out there. So, to my response to that would be, like you said, I get, because – again, it goes back to what John Keim said, where you have those the 4 first-round picks, and it goes back to the sign of do your job. And I think Keim put it out there that the sign was basically directed at the defensive line, a.k.a. Chase Young, because of all the freelancing and all the stuff that he was trying to do. He was trying to make the splash play. And, I mean, look, you can even say that guys like Daron Payne and John Allen, like, yes, they're getting double-teamed and they're good at stopping the run, but it's all about getting to the passer and rushing the passer. And you could say that those guys kind of forgot about stopping the run, and they're just all about getting to the passer. All 4 of the guys kind of maybe –
Didn't I say that not too long ago?
Yeah, maybe all 4 of those guys were playing outside of the scheme and just trying to get their numbers up, because obviously Montez and Chase got contracts coming up. Jonathan Allen – honestly, at the end of the day, he has no more guaranteed money.
The tape doesn't support that. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying you're wrong.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying Jonathan Allen, because he seems like a team guy through and through. And then obviously Daron Payne after last year, teams are going to focus a lot on him. But at the end of the day, I think that, just like Keim said, that the do your job kind of sign was directed at the defensive line, because it seemed like they weren't playing together. They weren't rushing together. This goes back to 2021. After the season they had in 2020, where the reports are coming out that they weren't rushing together, They weren't playing as a unit. Warren Sapp even said that. Just being around them a couple weeks in training camp, he said they weren't playing as a unit.
And this is why when I talked about that leadership division and with leaders, that's why you need to bring in a guy like Warren Sapp, because obviously they're not listening, and the message still was not being delivered.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, like you said, I mean, the writing's on the wall for obviously the coaching staff, and more than likely the front office, and more than likely the coaching staff. So at the end of the day, it's a self-preservation game, at the end of the day. And you can either continue to trot Chase out there and he can continue to keep doing his thing and whatever, blah, blah, blah. The defense can continue to look bad with or without Chase, and you'll probably lose your job. Or, I mean, obviously the directive to trade him probably came from the top, but at the end of the day, Ron could have fought back and been like, I have personnel control of this. You can either let me go or I'm down with this. And it just seems that from the time they drafted Chase up until they traded him on Tuesday, the messaging from Ron Rivera and even Jack Del Rio to a certain extent when he talks to the media once in a while has always been about maturity, has always been about playing as a unit. And at this point, for 3.5, almost 4 years into that, clearly it's time for a change. So,
Yeah.
and
That's
as far as like
exactly
the
what I was gonna say.
yeah,
Like,
and
dude,
then as far as like
they're 31st in points per game right now. They're 12th in red zone, 22nd in third down percentage, 21st in rushing yards,
Exactly.
29th in passing yards, and 8th in sacks. To your point before, what matters more? Getting the sacks, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and as far as like the hit piece or whatever you want to call it like that, I wouldn't call it that is because like we were talking about this before. They've pretty much been saying the same thing, the same constant little hidden little slight messages here and there through the media about this for the past couple of years. So it's just and at the end of the day, someone made a good point on the radio. I think it was Linnell on the radio. Whenever Tom Brady left New England, Tom Brady got talked about in a bad light. And so did Bill Belichick. This happens with pretty much every player, especially when they're like they have the star power of a Tom Brady, of a Chase Young, of a whoever you want to talk about.
Remember the whole thing about Jared Goff wanting to bang McVay's wife?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like at the time, Jared Goff was a star. He went to the Super Bowl with the LA Rams. You know, he was playing at a pretty almost a high level. So it's like this always happens about whenever players trade teams and leave teams on semi or bad terms. There's always going to be stuff that comes out and leaks out about them. That's just the nature of the business. So I don't really have a problem with that. And also because, like I said, they pretty much been telling us this through the media, like through hidden messages for the past couple of years anyway. So it is what it is.
You're right. Now let's get into our next fan question. Great job, Tony Franchise. That was a good question.
It was a good question.
This next question is submitted by the Colonel. Thank you, sir. Third round pick for Chase Young? And the 49ers will go far in the playoffs, if not win the whole thing, which means that third round pick will be one of the last in the third round. Why didn't we just keep Chase for the season and then let him walk and get a third round comp pick? What's the difference?
Well, I believe that this third round comp pick is actually one of San Francisco's third round comp picks. So either way, we're going to get a third round comp pick for it, whether it was a little bit higher up than 100, which I think is the San Francisco pick, or whether it's a little bit like behind 100, which probably wasn't going to be our pick anyway. It's still a pick, and at the end of the day, it's just more picks right now for the next regime to have at their disposal as far as like if they want to use that to draft somebody at pick 100, cool. Third round picks from the first, second, and third round, even at the back half of the third round. I'm not going to say they should be immediate starters, but they should be at least rotational pieces on your roster. If not right away, then at some point throughout the season. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and they can also use that pick if they want to package it with something else. They can use that to move up in the draft. And this just keeps your options open as far as like the new GM, the new head coach, and what their vision is as far as like how they want to manipulate the draft board. People want to talk about the Eagles and how they hate them. Cool. I get it. Trust me, I definitely get it. One thing you can't say about the Eagles is their front office is progressive. They're smart. They're forward thinking. And honestly, a lot of front offices probably wish they could have a Howie Roseman type guy and be that forward thinking. And honestly, I hope that we can get to that type of level one day where we're forward thinking, we're kind of cutting edge, and as far as stuff like that. So
I got conspiracy theories about Howie Roseman and how he gets these trades done, by the way. I got conspiracy theories because it's not.
Trust me, I've heard a couple of them.
That being said, look, you can have all of that, but Howie Roseman still missed on Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to hate on every pick.
That's why he's working his ass off, because he has to prove that he can still talent evaluate, and we're still waiting for his first-round picks to make a wave.
I'd be so salty if the Eagles had Justin Jefferson.
Jalen Hurts bails that dude out a lot, all I'm saying.
Hey, that happens with a lot of people. Look at Kyle Shanahan. He got bailed out by Brock Purdy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you find a quarterback. Absolutely. Look, Ron Rivera might get bailed. Ron Rivera might get bailed out as far as, like, he'll probably going to get fired, obviously, but he might get bailed out as far as, like, their legacy leaves behind if he hits on Sam Howell. And that's pretty much, which is the bad part about it. He pretty much said this in the beginning of the season. If you really think about what Ron said, he was like, yeah, I probably know I'm going to get fired, but if the quarterback hits, give me my props. Hey.
Stupid. You're right, though. With Chase Young, look, I'm not going to say it was a bad idea for them to trade him now, because the comp pick is still up in the air. If you spend a lot in free agency, that takes away the comp pick ability. Also, I'm pretty sure Chase Young would have to garner like a top 5 average type of contract in order to do that. Would the 49ers be willing to offer him that when he resigns to give you that comp pick? So I'd much more go with the certainty of the comp pick from the 49ers rather than banking on possibly getting a comp pick after the season. You know what I'm saying? So instead of possibly getting nothing, you get a guaranteed something in return. And look, anything can happen in this draft, and you can use it to trade up, you can trade back, you can get more, and you can just add assets here. But I think there are a lot of questions I have arrived from this trade, and I want to know what the vision is in place. But the one thing I will say, I've never said this before, my inklings about Montez Sweat and Chase Young go back years ago. I didn't think it would probably be a real thing because I thought they were still leaders and still productive in a sense, but it just seemed that there's always something been off with the D-line. They have never seemed to be on the same page. And, like, trying to wrap my brain around, like, maybe it's the usage. And, like, over the years, just trying. And when you think about it and you hypothetically, like, in your head wonder what the possibilities could be, the social aspect is one that you continue to fall back on at the end of the thought. Do you know what I'm saying by that? And that's the unfortunate part for me.
Like you said, we were talking before. We were like, obviously, you're not going to be cool or boys with or talk to every single person, hang out with every single person in the NFL locker room. That's like almost kind of impossible. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, you would think that the guys that are in your unit and the guys that you practice with every day, go to war with every day in that unit, in that defensive line room, you would think they would have some type of like relationship off the field. And who knows what's true? You just see the reports that are put out there, but it was kind of like, and you can see it on the field. They were not really as one. They were kind of their own individuals on and off the field, you know? So,
yeah, I know. And that's the kind of thing that's been in the leadership of that bleeding into the less social guys, the more of the introverts type of way. It bleeds into that because introverts, they won't go out and say that they look up to those guys as leaders, but they do. As much as they don't talk to them or really, they still look up to them in a way because of the social aspect of it. It's funny the way that, life and football really do go hand in hand together. Now, this next question from the Colonel: yes or no, Hall? Does Ron Rivera make it to the end of the season?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm gonna say. It's a tough one. I'm going to say no. I do think that maybe after the Thanksgiving game, maybe after the bye week, what is it, like week 14 is the bye week, I think. Maybe they cut the cord then, and maybe they give the tag to Bieniemy or whoever, the interim tag for the last 3 to 4 weeks. Maybe they give that as far as like a pre-interview audition for Bieniemy to see what he can do for the last 4 weeks, but like I said, it can go either way because I could definitely – I guess I could see them winning on Sunday. I could see them randomly pulling off a win in Seattle because they always beat one team a year they shouldn't beat. The next thing you know, you're back to 500, and it's like, are you really going to fire him at that point? So I'm going to say yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen either,
Look, man, I've tried to tell you guys how, because one of the arguments against Ron Rivera is everyone says, what do you do, right? What do you do? Well, what is he handing over to EB in that case, bro? There's nothing to hand over. And so the one thing I will say is I hate the idea of everyone saying that Ron Rivera is going to be fired. I don't think Harris should go about his business that way. I think you approach him, say, are you willing to step down or retire? Because I do not want to do that to your name. I respect what you've done here. I respect who you are. And so I would give you that obligation. I truly do not expect Ron Rivera to get fired. I know everyone wants to see him get dragged through the streets, but I just don't expect it to happen.
You do that with legacy coaches like Bill Belichick and guys that have been there forever. You don't do that with Ron Rivera.
Snyder did that when he first got here.
A cup of tea.
The Snyder did when he first got here, and it was a consistent theme throughout. But that being said, we are now joined by our next guest, who somehow is a superhero, like Superman going into the pay booth and the telephone booth, coming out with a new costume on. We had a miscommunication. It was supposed to come on Sunday, but I meant for tonight, and somehow you made your way to be able to do that for us, Brian, from the Declassified podcast. Thank you for joining us, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. I'm a big fan, and you guys are the OGs of the Washington Redskin football team Commanders podcasting. So thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Now I will say, Brian, I have watched you from afar of the past couple of years, and you really have blossomed, though, dude. And that's because of the hard work that you put in I've seen you put all the stats, analytics. You're consistent with it, and I respect the heck out of you, sir.
Definitely.
And I wanted to get your opinion on this question that was submitted by one of our my colonel, my father-in-law. Yes or no? Does Ron Rivera make it to the end of the season?
Absolutely. I think you were just touching on it there. Josh Harris is a class individual. He is not going to go about his business like we saw the past 25 years with Dan Snyder, where it's chaos, it's slander, it's smearing. Ron Rivera, whether you think he's qualified or not, or he's done a good job or not, he's a high character individual, and he has had to put up with a whole hell of a lot. And I think he at least deserves the opportunity to finish out coaching this year and then make whatever decision you want to about him, in the offseason from there. So I absolutely think Harris has that kind of appreciation and respect for him. And barring any kind of crazy, the season just implodes, there's infighting, something kind of crazy like that. I don't really see any kind of major changes outside of the trades that we just saw. I think Ron Rivera is here, the staff's here, and we'll talk about the offseason in the offseason.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that that's just probably the best way to go about business at this point. We don't need to be doing the same things that were done before because we've seen what the results are at that point. Now, this next question was submitted by Deluxe. Brian, if you want to answer it. A year ago today, the news broke that Snyder could be selling. How do you feel 1 year later? And what are you going to do to celebrate?
Well, it's been a year-long celebration, and I feel great. Like, to be honest with you, when I heard that news, it just for me cemented the fact we get our team back, we get hope back, we get the possibility of, hey, do you want to think about having a 14-win season? Well, that's possible now. It was never possible before. You want to think about making good, smart trade decisions, future roster decisions. All those things are now possible. So for me, it was great. And this whole season for me has been fun because, hey, I know only sky's the limit. Like, we've been on the floor, we've been on the bottom for so long. Now anything's possible. So I love it, and I think I'm going to make myself an adult beverage tonight to kind of commemorate that. So
that's probably a smart thing that a lot of people are going to do. How do I feel 1 year later? I mean, I feel great about it up until this point. I'm glad that it happened because you could talk about the Redskins under Snyder's ownership, and you could say that everybody who came through here went through a urine car wash. And so it was like you came in with hope, but then when they were in the car wash, you kind of realized they're not going to get out of this clean. And that hope was always gone. So when Snyder finally said that he was going to be selling, I still took that with a grain of salt just because you can't trust the guy. But I'm glad that he did it because now the hope is back that that car wash is gone. That we actually might be able to see some clean vehicles leave this parking lot. And how am I going to celebrate? I'm going to celebrate by recording a podcast with Mark Bullock and being able to talk with Brian here, who's really impressing me so far. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, like you said, like Brian said, it's almost been like a year-long celebration. I still remember I was at work whenever I saw Bank of America like put out the tweet. And it was like 1 minute old. And I was like, this is like one of those fake like Bank of America like parody accounts, like whatever. So then I don't. Twitter's a crazy place. I don't know.
You're right.
But I put it in like our group thread with like me, you, and Reed, and I put it in our group chat back when you were in there before you left, like a little biatch. But it's like but yeah. So I was like, it's just
that group chat.
Yeah, the group chat, the fantasy football group chat.
I got it.
Yeah, but so I was like, is this real? And then all of a sudden, you see guys like John Keim start to put it out, and other sources like Front Office Sports or whatever it's called. And I was just like, what? And it was kind of like I was listening to B. Mitch and Finley. It was almost like a celebration, like, oh. And it's like you said, it's been a celebration for a year long straight, and it's just one of those things where you just like it's been like a hamster wheel where it's like it's almost like rinse, wash, repeat. Where it's like a guy gets hired or fired, and it's like, oh, we have new hope, and then halfway through the season, it's like, here we go again. Yep. Then the season ends, and it's like, well, it's always next year, and then the season starts, and it's like we have hope. And then midway through, you're like, oh, we're here. And it's just the same thing over and over. And I feel like finally, at the end of like, there's finally, like you said, a new hope. Seems like there's one vision, one path. Everyone's on the same accord for the most part. And it just seems like there's finally the dark cloud is out of Ashburn. And hopefully it'll be nothing but sunny days ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, sir. And I had to remind myself of that on Tuesday and Wednesday morning when I was angry tweeting because I felt stupid, and I still do. But it's all right. I'm past it now. I've just come to a realization that I'm just an idiot. Now, this next question, Brian, was submitted by Big Tony Shivers. It's a fun one. Speaking of getting some of your kids Halloween candy, because Andy Lockhart asked us, why does Kyle steal chocolate from his child? I'm teaching him taxes, okay? So leave me alone. It's an educational exercise. But his
That's
question
right.
is, speak of what is your favorite and least favorite candy, Brian?
Favorite candy of all time, Halloween or any day, is a Kit Kat.
Mm.
That is my favorite. That was my dad's favorite. So for me, that is my favorite. Least favorite is candy corn. I don't know how it survived this long. I feel like it could survive like a nuclear blast. Candy corn. It is so gross. I'm not a fan of it, and I wish it would go away. But Kit Kats all the way, and all these new flavors of Kit Kats. I don't know if you guys seen them. There's like
Yeah.
blueberry. There's strawberry. It's crazy, but Kit Kat any day of the week.
And it's a good age for candy goers because they're doing a lot of fun stuff. And the one thing about Kit Kats is they're not like overdone. Everything is very balanced. You know what you're getting. Good candy. I like that. It's a good one. My favorite I said was Babe Ruth. Obviously Snickers, Reese's. You can't go wrong with. But I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
gonna lie to you folks. I mean, lollipops is probably my least. It's like there's no use for them. You won't catch me, sucking on a lollipop. So not me. What about y'all?
Yeah, I've always been I love Reese's peanut butter cups. It's always been my favorite, Halloween or not. It's gonna be my favorite till the day I die. I was just smashing the girls' trick or treat candy earlier, going through the bag, taking all the Reese's out of it. Hopefully, they don't hear me saying that because they're gonna like flip out. But yeah, so I love Reese's, and my least favorite, I would say,
Candy corn was a good one.
candy corn was a good one. Definitely not a fan of candy corn.
Like candy corn is the only thing you eat when you have nothing left. Like if
Yeah,
you're
right.
desperate, sort of thing, as a kid.
You're all
I
out.
would say
Yeah,
almond
absolutely.
joys. Oh, I don't like almond joys. I'm not like a big
I
like
like almond
peanuts and
joys.
like
I've grown to them.
peanuts and chocolate, and
What?
just like I'm not a big fan of peanut, which is weird. I like peanut butter and chocolate, but
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of peanuts and chocolate together.
I'm with you. Now, boys, let's get into this game this weekend. This next question was submitted by Tim Towner. Belichick is known for having this D take away from what you do well, so that you have to beat them doing what you don't do well. So, what do we do well? Anything? What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, right. Like, what do we do well? We've been so up and down. But I think with this kind of revelation of this pass game against the Eagles, the quick pass game, right? That seemed to be something that we could hang our hat on. So I'm going to look for Belichick to try to take that away, try to pressure Sam Howell, make him make even faster decisions, quicker decisions, confuse him. And we all know how well Belichick does against rookie quarterbacks, first-year quarterbacks, and Sam is very much still a rookie in terms of right 9 games that he's played. So look for him to really try to confuse Sam and make Sam speed up his internal clock. So that's my big worry here come Sunday.
Yeah, I think Bill Belichick knows that, and like to your point, like the fast passing game is obviously a jump off of the running game, right? It's just a minute running game, just same thing, right? But Washington right now, they're 17th of points per game. They're 8th in red zone percentage, 29th in third down percentage, 26th in rushing yards, 12th in passing yards, and 31st in sacks. So off bat, I'm going to say what they do well is the red zone. And we saw that with the Terry McLaurin catch. I think when you start to get to that 25 to 20 yard line, that's when you're going to see some hits there. But the one thing is, I think Bill's going to screw with us because we're probably salivating at the thought that they're going to be in man coverage a lot, and we're going to be able to get those kind of routes that we want with Terry McLaurin and others. I almost wonder if Bill's going to sit in a soft shell and force dink and dunk throws because he knows it pisses Sam off, and he might throw a pick later on because of it. You know what I mean? And that's my big concern here. But what we do well offensively, without a doubt, it's the red zone conversions. Right now, that's the best thing that we're doing at the moment. Third down needs to get better. I know we did pretty well last week, but right now we're sitting at 29th. Need to be consistent on third downs, getting down the field, and being able to get this offense some more opportunities.
Yeah, and speaking of consistency, like after that Eagles game, you would have thought that like, all right, the quick game is what works. Like that was the most balanced they've been as far as like the run game and the screen game and the extensions of the run game and whatnot. The quick game, like I said, but we haven't really seen that a lot, like consistently going forward in the game plans. And so hopefully, with us doing it against the Eagles again, hopefully Bieniemy sees that, okay, that's what Sam is like most comfortable at this point in the season. This is what the offense is most comfortable with at this point in the season. The line played extremely well as far as like the sacks go. I mean, obviously, we talked about Wiley, but came at the worst possible time, but it is what it is. So I do think that Belichick, like we talked about with Mark Bullock, they play a lot of man coverage. I think they're going to try to press Terry, Jahan, those guys at the line of scrimmage, throw off the timing, throw off the quick game as far as like getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And like Mark talked about, or Brian talked about, we saw that when Sam has to think a little bit more, or the reads aren't 100% as clear as he wants them to be,
Right.
he tends to hold the ball a little bit, and that's what leads to the 4 or 5 sacks plus the game. So I think that the wide receivers are going to have to win at the line of scrimmage and get open quick enough for Sam to make the definitive read and get the ball out of his hands quick.
Yeah, and the Patriots defense are 27th in sacks so far, averaging 1.9 per game. But to wrap this up, let's do our score predictions and MVP. So, Brian, what do you think the score prediction is going to be? Is Washington going to win? And who is going to be the most valuable player in getting that win?
I do like Washington to win this game, and I think that I think we win. I think it's closer than probably we would like. I'm going 28-23, and my MVP, look, we just traded away 2 defensive ends, so the focus, the any kind of importance is going to be on the defensive tackles. You are now the guys, right? Like it's not the 4 first-round picks, it's just you 2. So you're going to have to carry us. You're going to have to make some big plays. So I expect around Payne and Jonathan Allen to be everywhere, to be in that backfield, and I hope to see them making a bunch of plays this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, look, right now the New England offense are 31st in points per game. But that being said, Washington's defense is 31st in points per game. So who's going to bend here? And the trade, I think, brings the cog into this, because that goes into my MVP in Casey Toohill. If Casey Toohill can come out and do well, because right now the Patriots are 12th in sacks allowed on offense, it's going to be hard to get after the quarterback with Mac Jones getting the ball out of his hand quickly. But if they're able to do that, that really shows that you have a grasp on this game. We could see a difference in this team altogether. So for me, I think that Washington is going to win this game. I think it's going to be low scoring-ish, but I'll say 20-17, or might be a funky kind of scoring game. 2017, I think the defense takes a big step forward, and you kind of can see them playing mature football, consistent football. And I really think that we're going to be seeing a Cam Curl deal come here soon. I really hope so. For me, 20-17, and Casey Toohill is the MVP.
True, I like that. For me, I think that it's going to be like Brian said, it's going to be closer than a lot of us would like it to be. I do think that the defense, as far as like yards, I think they give up the same amount of yards. Well, hopefully not, because that offense sucks. But I think the offense is going to have that bend but don't break mentality still. I think with Smith Williams and Toohill coming in, the rotational guys, maybe Andre Jones and KJ Henry get in the game a couple reps, I think they're going to play fundamental sound football and pretty much do what Ron Rivera said with the sign and do their jobs per se. And I think that they'll be able to rattle Mac Jones in the pocket a little bit, get him off his mark.
Whoa, what happened to you, man? Froze right in the middle of it. And that being said, I know KJ Henry and Andre Jones, I think they actually did have a lot of experience in falling into coverage. If I'm not mistaken, Andre Jones did a heck of a whole lot of it at Louisiana.
Jeez.
Or it was KJ Henry.
Or
it was KJ Henry who did. Sorry, Hall, you had froze right before that. What was your prediction?
Yeah, I was going to say, computer hasn't frozen in a while. This is the first time in a while. My prediction was I think the defensive line does their jobs or whatever potentially, and they rattle Mac Jones in the pocket, make him get off his mark. We see him when he gets off his mark and he's not comfortable in the pocket. He is a bottom 5, below average quarterback. So I think it's a low-scoring game. Unfortunately, as much as I want to believe that the offense is going to string 2 good games together,
no,
it's just been the pattern. Prove me wrong this week. Please prove me wrong, Commanders, please. But I think the offense takes a little bit of a step back than what we saw against Philly. And I think it's one of those punt fests as for the most part. But I do think we do enough at the end. I got us winning, I'll say 20 to 20-14.
Would
I'll
love
say
to
we
see a
win it.
special, big time special teams play as well. Would
MVP, I will
absolutely
say,
help.
I think Jahan Dotson finally got his feet under him. I've been going to the well. I'm gonna go back to the well again. I think Jahan Dotson builds off of last week. I don't think he goes crazy for over 100 yards again because this is still a good defense on the other side of the ball. But I do think that he'll be the leading receiver for this team, and I think that he'll be a key piece on the offense on Sunday.
Yeah, and Curtis Samuel most likely being out for this game. Watch out for Diami Brown and Jamison Crowder to come up with some big yardage and help. And obviously can't forget about Pringle, who had that missed deep ball that could have been a touchdown down there. But that's going to wrap us up for this episode, everybody. Brian, I can't thank you enough for dropping everything that you were doing and being able to come on here, sir. I really do appreciate it. But before you get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle and the podcast, just in case there's anybody watching that hasn't followed you yet and would like to, sir.
No, absolutely. Thank you for letting me come on and chop it up with you guys. Yeah, you can catch me on X or Twitter. It's at Mr. Who with 2 O's, 1, and I am on the Commanders Declassified podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. Website commanders247.com. But thank you again, guys, because you guys are the GOAT of the podcast game in Washington Redskin football team Commanders. So thank you so much, man. Awesome.
It's just a great community, brother. We're just here having fun with the rest of you guys. All right,
Yes,
everybody.
sir.
That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We will not be recording on Monday. We have holiday pictures to take, me and my family. And so we're going to try to do it on Sunday after the game. So be on the lookout for the next episode being Sunday evening rather than Monday evening. So just keep that in the back of your head. All right, everybody. We'll see you this weekend. Have fun. Be safe. And let's get a dub this weekend, man. I like Bill Belichick, but I like to see him angry. All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.